Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to show you how to make the SWAG version 4.0 porter band table compatible with your Milwaukee M18 FUEL bandsaw. Now straight out of the box these two are not compatible with each other, but with a few simple modifications to the table itself it will work, and it will work very well. So stay tuned and let me show you exactly what you need to do to make the two work together. To install the bandsaw on this table, you need to take the adjustable shoe and you need to move it all the way out, so the most outward position possible. So that is all the way out, and then what we're going to do is stick it through the slot here, stick the blade through the slot, and then it's going to line up with this little tab, and the little tab is going to stick in an air vent right here. And typically with the regular bandsaws, that's going to go all the way in flush. And I'm going to zoom in now so you can see what I mean. See how there's that slight little gap right here? That little gap is what we are going to fix now, because that little tab is designed with other bandsaws in mind before the Milwaukee M18 FUEL came out, and that little tab actually has to be ground back a little bit. So what I'm going to do is mark it, and then I'm going to look inside the actual vent itself on the bandsaw, and we're going to see exactly what we need to grind out. I'm going to actually take this fairly slow because I don't want to overdo it, but you'll be able to see the before and after as I go ahead and grind that down. So now I'm going to just take a standard Sharpie marker, and I'm just going to mark along here where it is actually sitting at the current moment. And where that line stops is basically where we're at. So on the black side of that line is where it currently stops, and then of course the silver is where we need it to be. And I'm just going to grind a little bit of the section right in here out so it'll line up with the port in that little air vent. And just to show you the air vent itself and what it is hitting, if we look at this air vent, let's see, if we look at that air vent, you see that little black tab right here? That black tab is a newer design feature with these newer saws. With any of the older bandsaws, that little black tab is not going to be there. That's the internal motor exhaust port. And that is why we're having to trim that back, is because the new design of the bandsaw itself actually has that little black tab. So you can see about halfway in, and then maybe, I don't know, about a quarter of an inch or eighth of an inch we need to grind back. So that's what I'm going to do now, is grind that little tab back, and then this bandsaw should sit flush on there. Okay, what I'm going to be using to grind this back is just a standard little angle die grinder, and then I have a little grinding stone on here. That way I can go real slow and not take off more than I need to, and I can also do test fits as I'm taking the material off. That way I'm not going to grind way down in here and take off more than I need to. I'll be able to really be able to control it a lot better than using a bench grinder or even a handheld angle grinder. So now I'm going to go ahead and grind this back some. Now remember, we're not going to go past about the halfway mark, because the halfway mark is where that tab stops and then it opens up completely. So you're better off just going ahead and marking this, and then you're going to be removing from about the halfway mark all of it back to where it actually slopes back down, and then probably down about an eighth of an inch. So right before that actual silver line starts, you'll just draw yourself just another little diagram here, and basically that's what you want to take out, is this little section right here. And you don't want to go all the way down to this original line before we do some test fits on this. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this now, and we're going to see if it'll fit. Okay, now we can go ahead and try a test fit on this. I'm going to zoom in just to show you exactly how much I ground down. And you can see I did not go all the way down to that original line that we drew, but I did go over about halfway and then went down roughly about an eighth of an inch. So I'm going to stand this up now, and we're going to see if that bandsaw will fit, or if I'll need to remove additional material. Okay, we'll take our bandsaw, we'll line it up, stick the blade through that little slot, and then lining it up with the air vent, it is now much tighter. But you can still see there's still room for improvement. So I still need to go ahead and remove just a little bit more material, but it is going in further than it did originally, and you can see that original line I drew is almost completely disappeared under the surface of the bandsaw itself now. So now I'm going to grind a little bit more away and we'll see if we can get this flush. Okay, we'll try this. Now you can see that that line is almost completely covered up. It's very even across there, which means I only have maybe another 1/16 of an inch or so to remove, and this should be completely flush. Okay, now for the final time, hopefully we're going to try to put the bandsaw on again, and ideally it's going to be flush along here. So we'll take it, take the blade, stick it through the slot, place it on that little tab, and there we go. The next thing you're going to want to do is remove this bracket on the bottom of the table itself. The bolts are completely identical to the ones that we attached the legs with, so the same exact socket will work. And underneath of here, there's going to be two different washers, one under each bolt, and they also act as spacers because the depth of that washer is going to keep this bracket a certain depth off the bottom of that table. But because Milwaukee changed the size of that vent port on the bandsaw itself slightly, it will not line up correctly with how everything goes together, and it wants to pivot down. But when you change these washers out with two washers that are just slightly thinner, you can see the two different washers here. These are the thinner washers, and then the thicker ones are right here. So I'll zoom in, and you can see the depth difference on these two. So the darker colored one is the one that is stock, and then this little thin silver one is the one that I'm replacing it with. So you can see that there is a slight variation in the thickness of these, and that little bit is what's really going to make the difference. So I'm going to zoom back out, and I'm going to change these out with the thinner washers, and then I'm going to put those little bolts right back in place. And once I do this, everything will align perfectly, and it's not going to want to pivot down at all. That is really going to prevent you from damaging your bandsaw. You don't want to use the stock washers and then force the little thumb screw to push everything together, because the weakest link always breaks, and in this case the weakest link is going to be that adjustable shoe that's actually going to be attaching the bandsaw, and you don't want to bend that. So you really want to change the washers out with the thinner washers. That way everything will align correctly and you're not going to damage the table or your bandsaw. Okay, installing the bandsaw on this SWAG porter band table is really easy. You take the blade and put it through the slot to the center of the table, and then you're going to line up that little notch with the air vent on the back. Now that it's sitting upright, really the only thing that's going to hold it on is this little red thumb wheel, and that feeds in between the adjustable shoe, the opening for the blade. In the center of that is going to be the hole that this is going to thread into the bottom of the table. So we're just going to line it up with that hole and then press up, and then just twist it clockwise, and it's going to thread right into that hole. And once we get it flush with the top of the table, we just stop so it doesn't pop up above the surface of the table, and it is installed. Pop a battery on the bandsaw itself, or if you're using a corded model, just plug it in, take it off of safety, and then pull the trigger, and it'll work fine. So I'm going to do some testing now to show you how good it cuts. It does sit upright basically exactly 90 degrees, and I've already done a couple cuts with this, and I'm very happy with the performance. And that's how easy it is to make the SWAG 4.0 porter band table compatible with the Milwaukee M18 FUEL bandsaw. If you like this video, please click like. If you like my channel, please click subscribe. And thanks for watching.